Hi, this is producer Mike from Portland's new 104.5 Way FM, and our good friends at the U.S. Digital Outreach Center have allowed us the use of these facilities to spend some time discussing what has become a very serious issue in our community today, and that is, at the time of this filming, we have had 43 gang shootings in our community so far this year. So what we wanted to do is bring together some people who've been very proactive in dealing with this issue and dealing with it right here in our community. So I want to introduce our panel. First off, we have Pastor Mark Strong from the Life Change Christian Center. Then we have my friend Pastor Ron Bronski from Song of Hope, and also Pastor George Merriweather from Northeast Community Fellowship. Yeah. Thank you, guys. And I wanted to start by saying that I feel like I'm playing catch up. I'm a little bit late to the party. I only was exposed to this issue about 3 months ago. And it's because I write the news for the morning show on Way FM. And about 3 months ago, my morning routine is always the same. I'll show up about 3:45 in the morning, crack open a Diet Coke, and start to write up some news. And it was in April that I came across a headline about a gang shooting in North Portland, and we wrote about it in the news. But then it was the day after, I saw another headline about a gang shooting in North Portland, and I completely ignored it because my assumption was this is the same gang shooting that happened yesterday. But then another couple days went by, there was another headline, and I started to put the pieces together, and I realized that they're not talking about the same gang shooting in North Portland. They're talking about a number of gang shootings. And it was at that point that I realized we can't ignore this. This is becoming too big an issue. So I was hoping we could discuss it, find out more about what's going on, and then what you guys have been doing about it. I want to start with you, Pastor Ron, because while this is new to me, this is not new to you. This is something that you've had experience with. So I'm hoping that you could start by kind of explaining how this issue has affected your life.
Yeah, well, for me, the issue goes back to, growing up. We all come from somewhere, and I came from Chicago. I wasn't always a pastor, so I did something else. And for the first 21 years of my life, living in Chicago, came from what people call a broken home, an alcoholic father, mother. I say she was liberated before women got liberated. And we were the product of that relationship. And so through a series of situations, found ourselves in different institutions until finally, at the age of 13, I became a gang member, and then continued in that vein for the next 7 years, at which time I shot some people, and then became a Christian. Fled the city after shooting this gentleman and came here to Portland, Oregon, actually, and lived here for a year and a half, and established myself as a Christian, and then went back and turned myself in and pleaded guilty for the crime. And so got 3 years probation, which is an absolute miracle in itself. But from that point on, have tried to do something about the situation, about kids being involved in gang shootings, involving gangs in general, do something about the conditions in the community where I grew up, because it doesn't change no matter what city you go to. It's the same ghetto. I still call it ghetto. That's what we call it when I grew up. I would still call it that. They call it all kind of things now, but it's still the same thing to me. And
well, I want to kind of unpack something that you touched on, and that is it's all too easy for us to read the headlines or to watch this on the news and think about it as an issue. I kind of want to go a little bit deeper with it and know what is it specifically that would make a 13-year-old boy want to join a gang, in your case. And then along with that, what is it that would bring somebody to the point where they would pull out a gun and shoot somebody, quite possibly somebody that they'd never met before? So at 13 years of age, what was it about that lifestyle that appealed to you?
Yeah, and the first thing you say is it didn't start at 13. It started at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Going to your family weekends, we'd meet on Saturday, and all my father's brothers and family would be drunk, and there'd be arguments and fights, and so you learn from a young age. In fact, I'm not kidding you. My family, for whatever reason, the reason I can say this is because I'm saved, and my father's going to be with the Lord, and I know he wouldn't mind me sharing this, but putting us in a playpen to fight each other to make us stronger so we could survive, and so it starts out as, you gotta live. Whether you're good or bad in the city, you gotta live. You gotta make it. And so some people pick one way, education, may pick sports. Some people just say, well, I gotta survive, and they choose to survive. And that's the way that I ended up, learning. And I have to say this, And you know, we've heard this all before. It isn't like I'm going to tell anybody anything new. You know, the main thing that happens is kids don't have any kind of mentors. They don't have any kind of places to go to do things that would really influence them to be positive. And so the people who are imprinting on them are negative people. Like the guy who took an interest in me when I was 13 was a young gang member that was 18. He saw potential in me. I was violent. I was moldable. He made me his disciple. I became just like him. I mean, it's not hard to understand. But why did I do that? Because I had tried to enter society peacefully. I had tried to become a part of what was going on this planet. But it's like every door I went through, man, it was slammed in my face. It was like the only place I got to go was here. And I don't mean that as a crutch or an excuse. I'm telling you, that's how life was for me. I went to Catholic school as a little kid. I heard about God. And I remember saying to God at 13, you know what, God, you've been gone too long. I ain't seeing where you're doing anything for me. You know, so I'm going to have to take care of this situation myself. And for 7 years, that's what I tried to do. But it didn't work. But I want to say this. There's a young man that I know for many, I'm not going to mention his name, but I knew him for a long time. And I think he can encapsulate for us what you just asked me about, why someone would shoot somebody and what can we do about it. This young man, I got to know when he was about 16. And by the time he was 16, he no longer had a real home. He lived with his mother when she was living wherever she was living, and she may move at any time, so he would go live with a relative. So he had no real home. The only home he had was the pockets in his pants. And so, you know, he became hard, and when you met him, you knew he was hard, and you knew he was capable of doing some things that most people are not. And I knew that because I could identify with him. And so, to make a long story short, as I developed a relationship with him, one night a knock came on my door, and it was him. I said, what's up, man? He said, I need you to do me a favor. I said, what? He said, I need you to hold this for me. I said, what? He said, this. And he handed me a .357 Magnum. And I said, dude, man, you know, I'm a minister and stuff, you know, this is probably not a situation for me. Well, you told me, man, you'd be there for me. I said, okay, I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to hold this for you this time, but, you know, you really can't put me in this situation again. And I held the pistol for him, and he left. He came back a few days later and he got it. But the point is this, that night he didn't shoot nobody. And the reason he didn't shoot somebody is because he knew me. He had some place to go when he was making that decision. He had someone he could talk to, someone he could trust, somebody he could have a relationship with. And when people don't have that, when they're out and they're isolated, and that's what's happening in society today, we're isolating people, especially men, especially young boys. They're being isolated and they're not talking to nobody. They're not talking to their elders, they're not talking even to their peer group. They're making decisions on their own. And by the time they do that, it's too late, and everyone's surprised, including their peer group. You know, so I think the solution is we got to get involved. We can't throw money at problems. Money ain't gonna do it. People have to love people. They have to care about people. And that's why I believe the church does the best job at this. We've been doing it the longest, and we do it the best because we love those who hate us. The Bible says love your enemy. And when you know how to do that, you can truly love your friend.
Awesome. And speaking of getting involved, and speaking specifically about the church getting involved, I want to talk to Mark and George about 1145 and what you guys are doing, working with law enforcement, working with the mayor, getting actively involved in this issue. But before we get into that, I'm going to start with you, Pastor Mark, and ask you, what was it specifically that made you want to take the next step? Now, it's all too easy for us to read the headlines, like I said, to watch the news, to talk about it. Maybe we're going to pray about it. But taking that next step and saying, I'm going to be actively involved in solving this problem and making a difference in our community, what was it that made you want to take that next step?
Yeah. Well, I know probably about a year or so before we started doing this, like yourself, reading the newspapers, people in our church, things that were going on, you know, it perplexes your heart, and you say, what in the world can we do? And so I had an idea in the back of my mind for 1145, which stands for getting people to make a 1-year commitment for 1 week for 45 minutes a week. So if they commit for a year, once a week, for 45 minutes a week, to somehow get involved or connect in the lives of the young people. So I had this in the back of my mind. And then what happened was we were sitting at a table, getting ready to take some pictures, much like a setting like this. We were getting ready to do a video shoot. And several pastors just showed up, and we started talking. And we said, well, let's just get together and have a joint service. And so we had a joint service, and we said, we need to do something else. Because, a lot of times we can get together and we can praise the Lord, we can hear good preaching, good singing, and we can feel nice and fine and fat and sassy and enjoy the presence of the Lord. But we said, with what's going on in our community, we have to do something that is tangible, something that's going to help better this situation. Now, one of the things that I like to say is that we're not misguided in the sense that we think that what we're doing is going to be a cure-all for the problem. It's not. It's not. And so we don't want to go in with any kind of fallacy or any type of understanding like that. But we understand that we can do something to contribute, even on a microcosmic level, to help better our situation, better our community. So it's 11:45. That's what we're trying to do. So our goal is to mobilize the church to be a presence in the community in 4 different areas. I'll let Pastor George speak to that if you'd like to.
And again, just with what Mark is saying, it was just interesting as we began to have this conversation, how many of us were thinking the same things, and all of us, to a degree, are doing our own individual things. And so we decided we could do more together than we can apart. Amen. And so we came together collectively. It started with 6 of us. We began to pray. Mark brought up this great idea about 11:45. And so after the unity service, we agreed to lay out this plan. And it covers 4 areas, the there, share, care, and prayer. And the there area deals specifically with mobilizing people to be a presence. The police have shared with us some of the hot spots in Portland, meaning some of the places where most of the gang activity is really taking place. And so we're going to mobilize people to be in those places during this 11:45 time. The share piece has to do with us mentoring, doing some discipling, and really trying to go back and be proactive as opposed to being reactive. Trying to get some of these kids, younger kids, out of the loop long before they get into the loop. So that's part of it. Then the care piece has to do with supporting the families. Obviously, after a gang shooting, these guys know as pastors, a lot of the times these things fall in our laps. These are members of our church, relatives that are part of our churches. And so we end up sometime coming in on the tail end of everything, but having to do everything. And so the care piece is just simply trying to put a strategy in place so that grief counseling, food, whatever support the family may need at that particular time, to come along and partner with them. And then the last part is the prayer piece, obviously that intercession. And we had a training. Our mayor was there, the police department was there, the chief of police was there, a lot of different agencies. And this is the thing that we found interesting was these agencies, these groups said, let us join you, because we have committed not to compromise the gospel of Jesus Christ. Right. We are saying, and we have said, and we have established, we are the church. And so no matter who joins us, we're not going to compromise what the Bible teaches. And honestly, with open arms, they're saying, okay, sure, we want to be a part. And one of the things real quick that we found out was though these agencies, they have a lot of resources, what we found to be true is the church has people, personnel. And that particular night, we had anywhere from 300 to 400 people show up. And it just really, for lack of better words, just kind of blew the minds of those, who were coming from the outside to see the church ready to be mobilized to do something. And so that's the strategy, and we're moving ahead. We're going to have another training July the 15th, Friday, July the 15th at 6:30 at Life Change Church. And following that, we'll have another unity service. But the momentum is there, and it's not just a feel-good thing for us. We're committed to this, and we're committed for the long haul.